You are watching A News. I'm Bakhtiar Sanov, and here are the top stories for today. Press conference between Ukrainian President Zelensky and the U.S. envoy Keith Kellogg has been cancelled. Several buses explode in Tel Aviv, sparking security concerns. California-based Aleph Aeronautics unveils flying car, pioneering the future of transportation. A planned news conference between Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky and U.S. envoy Keith Kellogg was unexpectedly cancelled and replaced by a brief photo session in Kiev. The change, reportedly at the U.S. request, comes amid rising tensions between Zelensky and U.S. President Donald Trump, who has shifted U.S. policy on the war and criticized Ukraine's approach.
A press conference that was set to follow talks between Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky and U.S. envoy Keith Kellogg was unexpectedly called off. Instead, the two figures held a brief photo session at Ukraine's presidential office in Kyiv, without delivering remarks or taking questions. Ukrainian presidential spokesman Serhiy Nikiforov stated that the change was made at the request of the U.S. side. The White House has not commented on the decision. President Zelensky said his meeting with Kellogg covered security guarantees and the return of Ukrainian prisoners from Russia. He reiterated his call for a strong agreement with the U.S. on investment and security.
We spoke with General Kellogg about the front line, the need to free all of our prisoners of war who are held in Russia, and also the necessity of a reliable and well-defined system of security guarantees so as the war doesn't return and Russians are no longer able to maim life. We all need peace. Ukraine, Europe, America, everyone in the world.
Kellogg's visit to Kyiv comes amid escalating tensions between Zelensky and Donald Trump, who has shifted U.S. policy on the nearly three-year war. Trump's recent decision to engage directly with Moscow without including Ukraine in initial talks has drawn criticism from Kyiv. Trump has also publicly criticized Zelensky, calling him a dictator without elections, and suggesting Ukraine bears some responsibility for the war. In response, Zelensky accused Trump of falling for Russian disinformation. Meanwhile, White House National Security Advisor Mike Waltz said Trump's frustration with Zelensky stems from what the administration sees as obstacles in Kyiv's approach to ending the war. He also cited Ukraine's rejection of a U.S. proposal that would have granted access to Ukrainian minerals as repayment for American military aid. On Wednesday, Trump warned Zelensky to act quickly in negotiations with Moscow, saying he better move fast or risk not having a nation to lead.
With the third anniversary of the war in Ukraine approaching, daily life continues under the shadow of uncertainty. But beyond the destruction and loss, the resilience of its people shine through in their hopes for a future without fear.
A new day begins in Ukraine. The streets awaken, children prepare for school, workers rush to their jobs. But beneath the routine, there is an unshakable truth. This is not an ordinary life. Sirens can sound at any moment, missiles can fall. And for almost 3 years, Ukrainians have been living with a question no one can answer. When will it end? For Daria Slavitska, war has reshaped everything, even the way she loves her child.
I don't sing lullabies to him. I whisper about peace. I tell him one day the skies will be quiet.
She still remembers the moment she heard the first explosions while pregnant, the panic in her chest as she wondered if her baby would be born into a world that is already crumbling. Maria Palchukovska, a neurology nurse, has spent years treating the wounded, watching life slip away from those who never had a chance to grow old.
I once believed loss meant missing someone. Now I know loss is emptiness. Empty chairs at dinner tables, empty beds in hospital rooms, empty futures stolen by war.
She dreams of a morning where her first thought is coffee, not casualties, where she no longer needs to memorize the names of the fallen. For Tetiana Lozova, a ballet soloist, war has stolen something less visible, but just as painful: freedom.
I used to dance for joy. Now I dance for survival, because if I stop, I will feel everything I've lost.
Her performances continue, but not as before. Curfews dictate showtimes. Air raids decide rehearsals. Even art must bow to war. For Ihor Olinik, war is not new. It is a shadow that has followed him since childhood. But this war took what no war should: his son.
He was 40, my only boy. He used to bring his children here to watch me dance. Now I dance so they remember me.
Grief doesn't always weep, sometimes it dances. Hennady Udovenko lost a limb in battle, but he refuses to lose himself.
I will not be defeated, not by war, not by loss. I will build a new life, one rep, one step, one breath at a time.
For him, peace isn't just about borders, it's about reclaiming strength, one painful moment at a time. For Crimean Tatar Mufti Murat Suleymanov, the war means distance. His parents are in occupied Crimea. Their voices reach him through phone calls, but their arms cannot.
Every time I hear their voices, I wonder, will this be the last time?
Some losses are invisible, some exist in the silence of words left unsaid, in the embrace that never comes. Lyudmila Kosterova had a home once, now she has memories.
War didn't just take my house, it took my family, my relatives in Russia. They no longer speak to me. They believe their TV more than they believe my tears.
For her, peace is not just the absence of war, it is the return of trust, the mending of broken bonds. Ukraine enters another year of war, another year of waiting, of hoping, of enduring, but through it all, the dreams of its people remain the same: a sky free of rockets, a life free of fear, a tomorrow where children wake up not to sirens, but to the sound of laughter.
US President Donald Trump warns that 10 countries part of BRICS could face tariffs as high as 150% for what he describes as efforts to undermine the American dollar. The nations include Brazil, Russia, India, China and South Africa. Last week, Trump said he could charge them 100%. Speaking at the Republican Governors Association meeting, Trump warned the Intergovernmental Organization against planning to establish a new global currency, claiming it's being led by the Chinese yuan to challenge the dollar's supremacy.
Any BRIC state that even mentions the destruction of the dollar will be charged a 150% tariff. And we don't want your goods, we don't want to partake. And the BRIC states just broke up. I don't know what the hell happened to them. We haven't heard from the BRIC states lately.
A possible meeting between US President Donald Trump and Russian President Vladimir Putin depends on progress with negotiations toward ending the war in Ukraine. That's according to US Secretary of State Marco Rubio. The US Secretary says he discussed the matter with Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov in Saudi Arabia last week. Rubio made it clear that no meeting will take place without a clear agenda. However, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky says he needs to be involved in any peace talks. The United States has made a sharp turn in both domestic and foreign policies in just 1 month of Donald Trump's second term in the White House. From mass deportations, tariffs and federal layoffs to climate, Gaza and Ukraine, the Trump administration has brought major changes. Our Ubi Shvander has more on this in Washington.
Well, as the old adage goes, there are decades where nothing happens, and there are weeks when decades happen. That perhaps best encapsulates the 1 month since President Donald Trump has taken office, with a flurry of executive orders coming close to 100 that have put a number of federal agencies and advisory committees on the chopping block, putting tens of thousands of federal workers out of a job, from the IRS to the U.S. Agency for International Development and other major federal agencies, with the president saying that he may even get rid of the education department. And they're not stopping there, with DOGE serving as the tip of the spear for President Trump's agenda to essentially completely restructure the federal government in a way that is essentially unprecedented. The Trump administration is saying that it wants to radically change the way that the government functions, and to end billions of dollars of what President Trump says is waste, fraud, and abuse. There are expected to be constitutional challenges to what the president is attempting to accomplish, but the president is moving too fast. And so his critics simply do not have enough time to catch up. Every day is a new executive order, and that seems to be the essence of President Trump's first month in office, to just go full steam ahead. On the foreign policy front, we saw the ceasefire in the Gaza Strip immediately taking place as the president came into office, and the further negotiations that are continuing for another round of hostage releases in the Gaza Strip. We are seeing the president pushing for breakneck speed negotiations between Ukraine and Russia. And the president saying that he wants to see that war ended immediately. And of course, the president saying that he wants his military to also focus on China and the Pacific, and the Secretary of Defense saying that there are going to be a number of defense cuts in the Pentagon's massive budget. So it's what the president is saying here is that he wants his administration to be remembered for the cost-cutting services and on the energy front as well, with the president signing a number of executive orders that the Trump administration believes will unleash American energy, essentially negating a number of executive orders that were previously signed by Joe Biden, Donald Trump's predecessor. And of course, on the tariff front, you can expect more tariffs to be signed, of course, with the president signing about 10% tariffs on China, threatening across the board tariffs on Europe and European exports that has America's allies worried. And the big question is, what will President Trump do next? Every day is a major announcement coming from the president, both on the domestic front and on the foreign policy front. So certainly it has been an incredibly eventful 1 month, and that many believe is just a taste of more to come, with President Trump wanting to accomplish as much as he can in the next 4 years. And certainly perhaps the biggest impact has been on the structure of the federal government and the amount of access that Elon Musk and his Department of Government Efficiency have been given. So many here in Washington believe that even more cuts are to be expected in a number of federal agencies and on the foreign aid front as well. I'm Ube Shabander reporting for A News, Washington, D.C.
Israeli police are searching for suspects after explosions hit several empty buses near Tel Aviv. No casualties were reported, but authorities remain on high alert as investigations continue.
The sound of car horns and traffic gave way to emergency sirens in Bat Yam, a suburb near Tel Aviv, as police responded to multiple explosions targeting empty buses. Israeli media reported that 3 bombs detonated in parking lots, while 2 additional devices were discovered and disabled before they could go off. Tel Aviv District Commander Haim Zagarov confirmed that police were working to determine the number of suspects involved. Security forces searched parked buses throughout the night, fearing more devices could be planted. Meanwhile, Transport Minister Miri Regev ordered all public buses, trains and light rail systems to be stopped and inspected as a precaution. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu was briefed by his military secretary and is expected to hold a security assessment. A spokesperson for the Israel police did not immediately comment on the attack, but authorities remain on high alert as investigations continue.
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says Hamas violated the prisoner exchange deal by handing over an unidentified woman's body instead of Shiri Bibas on Thursday. The Prime Minister vows Hamas would pay the full price for the breach. However, Hamas claims they have handed over Shiri Bibas and her 2 children under the ceasefire and prisoner exchange agreement. The captives were said to have been killed in Israeli airstrikes during the 15-month conflict in Gaza.
We will act with determination to bring Shiri home along with all our hostages, both living and dead, and ensure Hamas pays the full price for this cruel and evil violation of the agreement.
Greenland's ruling Inuit Ataqatigiit party says it will not rush on an independence vote through after a general election on March the 11th, citing concerns over possible economic and welfare implications.
Greenland's ruling party formally launched its election campaign on Thursday, signaling a crucial moment in the country's political trajectory. The campaign comes amid a surge in international interest in Greenland, particularly from the United States, which has reinvigorated the island's independence movement. This growing external attention has amplified domestic calls for swift secession discussions with Denmark. The independence movement has been fueled by a combination of factors, including the island's vast untapped natural resources, such as rare earth minerals, and its strategic geopolitical location in the Arctic.
I hear very few politicians say we want independence tomorrow rather than today. Everybody says we want independence, and we need some questions answered before we can move towards this. So I think I will not be triggered into, not by you, but by the heat of the moment to make decisions in a rush. And I think that my party has always said we want independence. We want all the time to push the boundaries of the Kingdom of Denmark and our autonomy within it. And we want to push towards independence.
Polls indicate that while a significant majority of Greenlanders oppose the idea of becoming part of the United States, there is a strong and growing sentiment in favor of eventual independence from Denmark. However, opinions differ on the timeline for achieving this independence, largely due to concerns about the potential impact on living standards. Many Greenlanders recognize that independence would require significant economic restructuring, as the country currently relies heavily on subsidies from Denmark, which make up a substantial portion of its GDP.
Turkey and Qatar have agreed to enhance mutual cooperation. Turkish Finance Minister Mehmet Şimşek and Qatari counterpart Ali bin Ahmed Al-Kuvari met in Istanbul for the Turkey-Qatar Joint Economic Commission. They focused on investments, strategic sectors, large project financing, green growth, banking ties, and trade opportunities.
During the Turkey-Qatar Joint Economic Commission meeting in Istanbul, Turkish Finance Minister Mehmet Şimşek praised the strong political ties with Qatar. He thanked them for supporting the country after the earthquake in February 2023. He says they hope to expand their partnerships to third-party countries.
We have free trade agreements with 54 countries, including the EU, and an access to almost $1 trillion market, ensuring resilience against protectionism. So we are true believers in regional integration as an anti-fragility at a time of global trade fragmentation. Negotiations on Turkey GCC FTA has been underway for a while, and we are grateful for Qatar's support in advancing the process. Once again, I hope this meeting will help strengthen our strong and strategic partnership.
Qatari Finance Minister Ali bin Ahmed Al Kuwari says the strong economic alliance is built on mutual respect and a shared vision for prosperity. He says the LNG agreements are key to boosting economic ties and diversification for both nations.
The ongoing negotiations for a free trade agreement between Turkey and the Gulf Cooperation Council, GCC, represent a significant step toward enhancing trade and investment flows. This agreement is anticipated to open new markets, reduce trade barriers, and create a better environment for businesses from both countries and the region overall.
Both ministers signed a memorandum of understanding to continue to deepen bilateral cooperation.
A delegation from the Belgian-Azerbaijani Chamber of Commerce is visiting Azerbaijan to strengthen trade ties and explore growth opportunities in sectors like logistics, metallurgy, and agribusiness. Despite current trade levels being modest, Belgium sees Azerbaijan as a strategic partner with significant potential. Our Nigar Shirinova spoke with Stef Goris, chairman of the Belgian-Azerbaijani Chamber of Commerce, about the current state of trade and future plans for collaboration.
What is the goal of this trade mission and what do you hope to achieve?
Well, it's the first time for the Chamber, the Belgian-Azerbaijani Chamber of Commerce, to pay a visit in this capacity to Azerbaijan. So it's first of all to make acquaintance with the different agencies such as Aspromo, Kobia and others. Also to meet our Azerbaijani members because they showed already interest to become a member, and we had some very fruitful exchange of views.
Our second question is, how would you describe the current trade relationship between Belgium and Azerbaijan and any key areas for growth?
Yes. To our opinion, the level is not high enough. We should really increase, step up in our mutual trade relations. This is for sure the case. That's exactly why we, with a group of businessmen, we created this independent and Chamber of Commerce, which is a non-profit organization. So, we are looking forward to, especially in the field of transport, of logistics, but also metallurgy, but also pharmaceuticals, chemicals. Agribusiness, many fields that have our interest.
And with Europe's changing economy, how important is Azerbaijan as a trade partner for Belgium?
Well, for the moment, it is, hélas, not. It has not the importance that we would like to have it, because we consider Azerbaijan as a potential future very important partner, because the geographic position of your country, being in the middle of the middle corridor and being in the bottleneck between big countries and the only access between East and West, between the Far East and Europe, we believe it has a huge potential, and we strongly recommend now to Belgian companies to be present during the development also of the middle corridor.
California-based Aleph Aeronautics has released footage of its flying car lifting up vertically, calling it a major step toward making the futuristic concept a reality.
Cars flying in futuristic movies have always intrigued us, but this time in California, the Aleph Model Zero takes off the ground, marking a step toward the future of transportation. Aleph Aeronautics has showcased its ultralight flying car in a newly released video, demonstrating its ability to lift off vertically and hover over a parked truck. The company says this is the first publicly shared footage of a car both driving and performing a vertical takeoff. The test was conducted with no risk to the public, according to Aleph. CEO Jim Duchovny compared the moment to the Wright brothers' first flight, calling it independently verifiable proof that flying cars are possible. Duchovny acknowledged that buying a flying car is still prohibitively expensive since production has not yet begun. However, he expects costs to drop over time, eventually reaching levels similar to conventional cars.
It's hard to estimate when as far as the exact year, but I think it's going to be a very, very gradual process. It's good for many, many reasons to have gradual process, to get it to consumers so people slowly get used to it, see how safe it is, see how quiet it is, see the benefits of it, not only for themselves, but for example, for search and rescue vehicles. So it's a slow, gradual process where people are going to see 1, 10, 50, 100, and so on.
While there is no clear timeline for flying cars to become mainstream, Duchovny believes the transition will be gradual.
You are watching A News, bringing you the latest. Stay tuned for more updates.